The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already started losing. Because people do not judge you by the truth of your words, they judge you by the desperation behind them. And the person who explains is the person asking for permission to be believed. Imagine this scene. You are in a meeting. Someone suddenly says, "You didn't handle this project very well." Instantly, your chest tightens, your brain floods with stress hormones. Your mind screams, "They're misunderstanding me. I need to explain." So you start talking. You give context. You present evidence. You explain why things happened. And in that exact moment, without realizing it, you handed them your throat. Because the world rarely operates on truth. It operates on power dynamics. And the person who defends themselves is silently saying, "You are the judge and I am the defendant." The Italian political thinker Niccolò Machiavelli understood this brutal truth centuries ago.
He knew something most people still refuse to accept. Power is not about who is right. Power is about who controls the frame. The moment you defend yourself, you step inside the frame created by your opponent. You walk straight into their courtroom. But what if you didn't? What if when someone attacks you, you do the one thing that manipulative people fear the most? Nothing. Silence. Imagine someone says, "You're being incredibly selfish right now." The old version of you immediately responds, "No, I'm not. Yesterday I helped you with this and that." That reaction is predictable, it's defensive, it's weak. But imagine a different response. They say, "You're being incredibly selfish." You simply look at them. No words. You hold eye contact. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Silence. Do you know what happens inside that silence? The human brain hates silence during conflict. Silence creates psychological pressure. The person who attacked you suddenly feels the tension they created. Most of the time, they will start talking again. I mean, not always selfish, just right now. Suddenly, they begin defending themselves. The power has flipped. This approach resembles what psychologists call the gray rock method. You become emotionally neutral, unreactive, untouchable, because attacks require resistance.
Without resistance, the attack collapses. You cannot punch mist. You cannot stab water. When you refuse to defend yourself, their aggression passes right through you. And that imbalance makes them uncomfortable. There is another hidden truth here. Every time you defend yourself, you reveal your insecurities. If you say, "I'm not stupid," people learn something important. Your insecurity is intelligence. If you say, "I'm not a bad person," people learn your insecurity is moral judgment. But silence reveals nothing. Silence is a dark mirror, and when people look into that mirror, they only see themselves. However, silence is not always possible. Sometimes you must speak, but when you do, never defend. Instead, use psychological judo. One powerful technique is called Agree and Amplify. Instead of rejecting an insult, you exaggerate it. Turn it into absurdity. For example, someone says, "You're obsessed with money, you're greedy." A defensive person replies, "No, I'm not. I just want to support my family." Predictable, weak. But imagine saying, "You caught me. Every Tuesday I swim in a vault of gold coins like Scrooge McDuck." Say it calmly, maybe with a small smile. What just happened? You refused to be insulted. You showed that the accusation does not threaten you. You took their weapon and turned it into a joke. This creates what psychologists call amused mastery. It is the energy of someone who knows they are above the conflict. Like a parent watching a toddler throw a tantrum. You don't argue with the toddler,
you observe it. In the famous book, The 48 Laws of Power, author Robert Greene describes an important idea. Never accept the identity others try to impose on you. When someone labels you, you're arrogant. They are trying to put you in a box. If you fight the box, you are still interacting with it. But if you laugh at the box, it disappears. You're arrogant. I prefer the term charmingly confident. You don't care about anyone. I'm working on that. I'll add you to the list next year. This response is playful, dismissive, powerful, because it shows something extremely attractive. You do not need their validation. But here is the deeper psychological truth. If an insult hurts you, it is because part of you fears it might be true. If I told you that you had green skin, you would laugh. You would not defend yourself. But if someone calls you a failure and you rush to defend yourself, that means the wound already exists. The real work is not verbal. The real work is internal, self-knowledge. When you understand your own strengths and flaws, insults lose their power. Someone calls you selfish? Sometimes, yes. Someone calls you difficult. I can be. When you accept your shadow, no one can weaponize it against you. Now, let's examine a hidden structure inside every argument. In most conflicts, there are two roles, the judge and the defendant. The judge asks questions. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Why are you always late? The defendant answers, I did it because traffic was bad, or I didn't mean to. Whoever asks questions holds the power. Whoever answers loses status. The Machiavellian move is simple. Refuse to be the defendant. Take the role of the judge. Someone asks, why are you always late? Instead of explaining, ask calmly, why does my arrival time affect your mood so much? Suddenly, the spotlight shifts. Now we are analyzing their reaction, not your behavior. Power has moved. Another powerful shield is curiosity. You're being ridiculous. Interesting that you see it that way. You're selfish. What makes you feel that? These responses do not argue. They acknowledge the sound coming out of their mouth without accepting the accusation. It's a verbal boundary. You are saying, that is your perception, not my reality. There is also a surprising power in agreement. Not submissive agreement, strategic agreement. This is known as the fogging technique. Imagine someone angrily says, you ruined this report. You're incompetent. A defensive person argues, I'm not incompetent. The data was wrong. But a powerful response might be, you're right. The report has errors. I'll fix it. Notice what happened. You acknowledged the fact, but ignored the insult. Confident people can admit mistakes easily. Insecure people fight desperately to avoid them. By accepting reality calmly, you remove the emotional fuel from the attack. But none of these techniques work if they are only lines you memorize. Dark psychology is only 20% words. The other 80% is presence, your tone, your posture, your calm. Which brings us back to the deepest lesson. True power comes from knowing yourself. When you accept your flaws, your mistakes, your imperfections, you become impossible to shame. You are no longer a fortress that must defend itself. You become something else, transparent, untouchable, like the wind. So here is a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, play a game. The game is called No Defense. If you are late, simply say, I'm late. Do not explain why. If you make a mistake, say, I made a mistake. Do not justify it. If someone misunderstands you, let them misunderstand you. At first, it will feel uncomfortable.
Your mind will scream, fix it, explain it, prove yourself. Let that urge burn away.
Watch what happens to people around you. First, confusion, then respect, and eventually something else, magnetism. Because nothing signals confidence more powerfully than a person who does not need to explain their existence. When you stop defending yourself, you stop living as prey in a world of predators. You reclaim your silence, and with it, your power. Now, let's go deeper into the hidden mechanics of conflict. Every argument has an invisible structure. In almost every confrontation, two roles appear automatically: the judge and the defendant. The judge asks questions. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Why are you always like this? The defendant answers, I did it because I was trying to. It wasn't my fault. And without realizing it, you step into the weaker position, because the person asking the questions controls the direction of the conversation. They hold the spotlight. You are standing under it, defending yourself, trying to prove your innocence. This is the psychological trap most people fall into. But powerful individuals do something different. They refuse the role of the defendant. Instead, they quietly step into the role of the judge. Imagine someone says to you, "Why are you always late?" The normal response is immediate justification. There was traffic. My alarm didn't go off. I had too much work. But every explanation lowers your status. Now, imagine a different response. You calmly ask, "Why does my arrival time affect your mood so much?" Suddenly, the conversation shifts. The spotlight moves from you to them. Now the discussion is no longer about your behavior, it's about their emotional reaction. And that shift is incredibly powerful. Because people who attack usually expect resistance. They expect defense. They expect you to panic and start explaining. When you calmly analyze them instead, it disarms them. Another powerful response is curiosity. When someone throws an accusation at you, instead of defending yourself, observe them. For example, "You're being ridiculous." Instead of arguing, say, "Interesting. What makes you see it that way?" Or simply, "That's an interesting perspective." These responses do something subtle but powerful.
They acknowledge the words without accepting the accusation. It creates psychological distance. You are no longer inside the conflict, you are observing it, like a scientist watching an experiment. And manipulators hate that, because manipulation requires emotional reactions. Without emotion, their strategy collapses. Now let's talk about one of the most disarming strategies of all: agreement. But not the kind of agreement that shows submission. This is strategic agreement. Psychologists sometimes call it the fogging technique. Imagine someone angrily says, "You messed up everything." Most people immediately argue, "No, I didn't, that's not true." But a calm response might be, "You're right, I did make a mistake." Then, silence. Do you see what happened? You accepted the fact, but ignored the emotional attack. When someone expects a fight and instead receives calm acceptance, their momentum disappears. It's like pushing against a door that suddenly opens. They fall forward. Their aggression has nowhere to go. Another powerful principle is understanding this: other people's perceptions of you are not your responsibility. This is difficult for most people to accept, because since childhood, we are trained to seek approval. We learn that safety comes from being understood, from explaining ourselves, from convincing authority figures that we are good. But adulthood requires a different mindset. You must realize something uncomfortable. People will misunderstand you. They will judge you. They will project their fears, insecurities, and frustrations onto you. And none of that is your responsibility to fix.
When you constantly defend yourself, you are trying to manage other people's emotions. You are carrying emotional baggage that does not belong to you. Strong people refuse that burden. They let others own their feelings. But here is the most important truth of all. None of these techniques work if you are secretly insecure inside. Because people don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. If your voice trembles, if your eyes search for approval, if your body language says, "Please believe me," then even the best psychological strategies will fail. Real power is internal. It comes from self-knowledge. When you understand your strengths and weaknesses completely, something interesting happens. Insults stop hurting. If someone calls you selfish and you already know you can sometimes be selfish, there is nothing to defend. You simply say, "Sometimes, yes." If someone says you are difficult, you respond, "I can be."
When you accept your shadow, you become impossible to shame. Because shame only works when something is hidden. When everything is already owned, there is nothing left to expose. This is what it truly means to become untouchable. You are no longer trying to control how others see you. You are no longer performing for approval. You are simply existing in your own certainty. And certainty is magnetic. People instinctively respect individuals who do not constantly explain themselves, because confidence speaks through calmness, through silence, through the absence of desperation. So here is a challenge. For the next 7 days, play a simple psychological game. The game is called No Defense. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it briefly. If you are late, simply say, "I'm late." Do not explain, do not justify. If someone misunderstands you, let them misunderstand. At first, the discomfort will feel intense. Your mind will scream for control. You will feel the urge to correct every perception, but resist it. Sit with the silence and observe what happens. You will begin to notice something fascinating. People start treating you differently, less like someone they can pressure, more like someone they must respect. Because nothing communicates inner strength more clearly than a person who does not desperately try to prove their worth. And once you master that state, you are no longer reacting to the world. You are controlling your presence inside it.